Welcome back, guys. This video is going to show you how to convert from a rational to a radical. So before we get started, a rational expression is just a fancy way for saying fraction. Here are some examples. If you have x to the 1/4 power, m to the 1/2 times y to the 3/2 power, and m squared to the 1/9 power. Those are all radical expressions because their exponents, as you can see, are all fractions. Before we get started, let's just remember that if you raise a base a, this is our base, what you're raising to the power of m over n, m is your numerator, n is your denominator, then that is the same thing. If you want to convert to a radical form, then you would take your base, which is a. Your root is what's at the bottom, so that's your n, and you raise it to the m power. Another way to write this as a radical is to take your base again, take the root of it, and then raise the whole thing to that power. These two right here are equivalent. They're both radical forms of what you started with. So let's apply that here. So here, let's first identify our base. Our base is 9. So let's write our base. Next, let's find our root. Our root is what's at the bottom. Think about a tree. When trees have roots, the roots are always at the bottom. So our root, we're doing the third root of 9, and then we're raising our 9 to the 4th power. The exponent is at top, just like it always is. Make that a little darker. There we go. So that's 9 to the 4th power. Okay, so this is what our answer would be. Another way that we could have written this was to take the third root of 9 and then raise the whole thing to the 4th power. So either of these versions is fine. The first one that we came up with right here, this one would be the more commonly used one. For our next example, we have the square root of 4m to the 6th. So when you see square root, guys, you can pretty much assume that the root is 2. We just don't have to say it because it's understood. So we're taking the square root of 4m to the 6th. So for this, the whole thing, since the whole thing doesn't have an exponent around it, we just assume that the whole thing is being raised to the 1 power. So when we apply this rule, we're going to go backwards a little bit. So we're going from this to this. So let's identify our base. Our base is what's actually in under the radical, which is 4m to the 6th power. The exponent is 1, and the root is 2. So that's how we would write that. We just took a radical expression and wrote it as a rational. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our rules of exponents, our superpower rule, and we have to multiply this exponent on the outside times the exponent on the inside. Before I get started, I'm going to write the exponent for my 4. My 4 is being raised to the 1 power. So now we can go ahead and multiply. So 1 times 1/2 is 1/2, so I have 4 to the 1/2. 6 times 1/2 is 3, so I have m to the 6. It's m to the 3, excuse me. That's almost simplified, but not quite. 4 to the 1/2 power, you can put that in your calculator. That's the same thing as saying the square root of 4. And we all know the square root of 4 is 2. So we can rewrite this as 2m to the 3rd. So that would be our final answer for that one. For this one, we are converting this from a rational, because we have the fraction, to a radical form. So let's identify our base. Our base is what's on the inside. This whole thing right here is being raised to that exponent. So that's our base is 16x to the negative 2 power. Okay, so there's several ways that you could do this. You could get rid of that negative by bringing it to the bottom first, or you could do it last. I'm going to do it last, but if you want to do it first, you can definitely do so. Oh, I just pretty much just wrote the same thing over and over again. Sorry. Okay, but basically what you're going to be doing, sorry guys, is you're going to multiply the exponent times the exponents on the inside. Please remember to write the exponent for the 16. The exponent for 16 is 1. So I'm going to multiply that 1/4 times each exponent. So I get 16 to the 1 times 1/4 is 1/4. X to the negative 2 times 1/4 is negative 2/4, which is negative 1/2. And then 4 times 1/4 is easy. It's just 1. You don't have to put the 1 there. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Okay? So, next thing that we're going to do is we have to get rid of that negative. So we know that everything is over 1 if we wanted to write it as a fraction. So we've got to send this x in the basement. So we're still going to have 16 to the 1/4 and the y up top. But now we're going to have x to the positive 1/2. Since we've moved it, now it becomes positive. That was the whole point. Now the last thing that we have to do is we have to simplify 16 to the 1/4. You can either do this by hand or using your calculator. If you use your calculator, please be sure to put parentheses around the 1/4. Alright, so when you simplify that 16 to the 1/4, you end up getting 2. So that becomes 2y divided by x to the 1/2. And we're done.